Sony proved us back in the day with PSP that it was indeed capable of playing PS2 games. And when its cutting-edge successor was announced, PS Vita, everybody expected PS3 games are gonna be playable. And indeed they were, to a various degree. Plenty PS3 games found its way onto this platform via official way, many of which were deemed impossible, especially the open world ones. And after Sony said goodbye to Vita, Homebrew community took over and plenty other impossible games were ported, unofficially too. And that's what this video is all about impossible becoming reality. Let's get cracking! Everyone's perception of impossibility is different, but the first game that I played on the Vita, and I couldn't believe it's real, was Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation. This was for a while Vita exclusive game, later it was ported to other consoles and now you can play it even on the Switch. When I first played it, I didn't know anything about it, but you know what? I liked it a lot. The traversing of the city felt great, climbing, jumping, running around, synchronization, it was all spot on and believable. I could absolutely feel the open world aspect and I loved it. The combat was a bit repetitive after a while, graphics were kinda acceptable for a 2012 handheld game, frame rate was not the greatest, still I considered proper Assassin's Creed handheld experience as impossible, until Vita and Sony proved me wrong. And yes, technically this is not a PS3 port. Is it impossible though? Absolutely. Nowadays, if your Vita is modded, you can enhance your experience even further with overclock. Plus, there is a great Vita graphics app that allows you to change the FPS lock. For example, you can change it from 30 to something lower for a more smoother experience. You can also change internal resolution of the game, but this one already runs lower at Vita's native, so only use at your own taste. Second impossible port is VitaGL. What the hell is that? VitaGL is an open source OpenGL driver for Vita development. Technically it is not a port, but a homebrew tool. I'm including it on this very important place anyway, because without it, almost no great port would exist. So, thumbs up to Rim for making it happen. I think here is also worth mentioning the Impossible Flows.so Android loader, thanks to which every Android Vita port or wrapper can function properly. Without it, Vita's homebrew library would be so much weaker, so big up to the Flow for figuring it out. My mind is blown by even trying to comprehend how somebody can come up with something like this. Incredible. Third is the proper PS3 Vita port of the amazing Spider-Man. When I first tried this game, my expectations were low, because I was thinking it's gonna be something like a 3DS port, which is not bad, but I had really hard time just to figure out the controls. Vita port, on the other hand, doesn't take no as an answer. It's a full-blown port of an open-world PS3 game. Full city and full single-player storyline is here. I've completed this game straight after I finished Assassin's Creed Liberation, and even with its longer loading times, choppy frame rate and downgraded graphics, it was still one-of-a-kind experience to play open-world Spider-Man game in the palms of my hands in mid-2010s, to swing across New York City and to kick some ass. You know, even in 2024 there is no such experience on the Switch. Not because it wouldn't be powerful enough, but because Sony owns a Spider-Man IP. Sony, I'm sure you know, we're still waiting for the Vita successor. Fourth is an impossible port of San Andreas. GTA 3 and Vice City were ported thanks to the games being decompiled. San Andreas, on the other hand, functions thanks to Android wrapper. This port happened thanks to cumulative efforts of many talented developers, primarily thanks to Rin's VitaGL and Flows.so loader. And to this day, it is one of the greatest homebrew Vita ports, period. Port of Borderlands 2 is on the 5th spot. First, I played the great exclusive Vita first-person shooter, Killzone Mercenary. I loved it, but straight after I jumped onto Borderlands 2 port. This is again a console quality Vita port. It was not perfect, Most of these ports were not perfect because they were mostly pushing the boundaries of what is possible and what is not. And even though the port was not perfect, I loved it because of what it represented. The Unreal Engine 3 revolution on the Vita, that can be nowadays again somewhat enhanced by overclocking your Vita and by using Vita graphics. Next is a more like a impossible proof of concept, but hell of an impressive proof of concept. Doom 3 on the Vita. Rin was trying to beat the odds with making it function. It was originally designed for single-core CPU. Rin managed to make it run multi-threaded thanks to help of Doom 3 BFG. In the end, it proved too demanding. Frame rate wasn't terrible, but the loading times were terrible. This game was just too thick for the Vita, and we should be proud someone at least attempted this gargantuan task. Respect. Now huge shout out to the brand new channel member, 3DS Renew. Your support is greatly appreciated. I just found out you are a true believer. Not sure we are gonna make it happen in this video. Also, huge thanks to all of my other supporters on Patreon. This is just a reminder that your contribution makes a huge difference. You voted for this video, so here we are, but PSP was just few votes behind. I feel it's coming. Next we have an official PS2 Vita port. I could have picked any, but in the end I decided I will go for God of War Collection. This is a port of PS2 games God of War 1 and 2. And generally they run pretty good, but most people had issues with messed up low resolution cutscenes. This issue can be nowadays fixed with HD cutscenes ripped directly from PS3 version of the game that can be installed to this game. I never really cared about cutscenes, but I always cared about fully overclocking my Vita, just to be sure that my hack and slashing of demons is gonna be as smooth as butter. By the way, I've already made one similar video like this one called the most impressive Vita and PSP ports. If you like this one, check that one too, I'm sure you're gonna enjoy it, but watch it right after this one cause now we've got another impossible port of Cuphead. Once just a myth and now it's for real. Back in the day there was like a demo remake with 3 bosses only making rounds in the homebrew community. But now in 2024 we've got a real deal. Every boss, every island, every level is available thanks to PatMSD. Minimal requirements to run this game on PC were quite a bit higher than Vita specs, but I believe that can be said about every port on this list in one way or another. Exactly like about Simpsons Hit&Run, that happened only cause its source code was leaked. And Zeno did a lot of hard work with completely reworking its renderer and with optimizing the game so it can even run like a breeze even on the weak Vita's hardware. Cause remember, this is originally a GameCube/PS2 game, and yeah, official developers were able to port PS2 games to Vita without any issues. Exactly like God of War, even though you see they still messed up. Don't forget that these were teams of developers, not a single guy working alone in the cellar. I'm pretty sure he wasn't working in the cellar, but it just sounds way better that way. The game is fully playable and even has extra cheats that are not available on the retail version of the game. Now a quick look at this ergonomic office chair made by FlexiSpot. Huge thanks to them for sending it over for a review. FlexiSpot specializes primarily in standing desks and in these ergonomics office chairs, so it's mostly for like office use, not exactly targeted at gamers. I like their products, they are very high quality, very durable, very functional, but they are also very expensive, and this chair is exactly the same. The model of a chair is C7 B Air Pro. It came in a huge box and the net weight of the product is 23 kilograms, which is quite heavy. The construction took me like a half an hour and the chair was ready for a service. It uses this highly breathable mesh material for the seat as well as for the back and headrest. The functions include: seat can go up and down, it can slide forward and backwards, armrests can twist 360 degrees and they can also go up and down, backrest can tilt up to 115 degrees, Plus it has dislocable lower back support with self-adaptive dynamic system. There is also footrest that can be unfolded and you can go into this wild position. It can be used also in plenty more positions. All of these functions are solid. The mechanism it uses is very high quality. It feels very sturdy and I'm sure it's gonna last a while. This is, in my opinion, great chair for anybody who spends a lot of time in sitting position, be it gaming or working like me. I have still the previous chair from them. There is not a single blemish on it, besides my cat's fur, but that's the price I need to pay. I was comparing them and they are both great, just a little bit too expensive for my taste. Luckily there is a Black Friday sale going on right now on the website, which can grant you a nice discount in case you are into any of their products. I have also the standing desk from them, and this combo makes my life of creating videos for you so much more comfortable. Thumbs up for that. And now let's get back into the impossibility of another great homebrew project, Dead Space Mobile. In the words of its original creator Glintwine, it was his hardest port to work on. It took the help of another developer, Bytos, to make this port fully playable with physical controls on the Vita, cause that was the biggest hurdle, to implement them. In the end, they were forced to emulate part of CPU instructions on the software, and that's not an easy task, at least from what I have gathered during an interview with him. I did one with the Rin too, and because of that I still remember about the greatness of VitaGL. Homebrew developers surely can stick together and solve an impossible problem or two. Now we have impossible ports that were made possible thanks to reverse engineering of the game in the first place. Here we have ports like GTA 3 or RE3, GTA Vice City or REVC, Fallout Community Edition 1 and 2 or Devolution X aka Diablo. Plus clearly plenty more. Ever since I started this channel I wanted to play Fallout on my Vita. Now I can and it feels surreal. Hopefully more games are gonna be ported this way in the future, cause these open source re-implementations are very popular nowadays. Port of Hollow Knight was also once considered as an insanity and people were laughing at you just for mentioning it. Then suddenly there was a version pretty playable, unfortunately without save states, and for this kind of Metroidvania you absolutely need them. Later even more polished version appeared with save states that has also fought against odds with the minimal amount of RAM this game requires to function properly. Developer did what he could, but the loading times are longer and the frame rate dips. Another madness was a port of Blasphemous. Here the developer also used all kinds of workarounds to get it even to a playable state like this. He downgraded textures, FPS is capped at 30, videos were replaced by sprites, sound can be sometimes glitchy, and again, loading takes a big hit. These games were just designed for more amount of RAM. If you don't give it to it, you're gonna wait a while. But it is cool to see what are people willing to do to play their favorite game on a legendary PS Vita. We can also witness this with the latest DS emulator for the Vita. There are just hardware limitations that the developer is trying to overcome with the hard work, and we can already see the fruits of his hard labor. Some Pokemon games are fully playable even now. 3D games can render not properly but somewhat. Plus other games like New Super Mario Bros. Now run like twice as fast as before. Same goes for Dreamcast emulator on the Vita, Flycast. This just shouldn't be possible, cause these emulators just require way more power than Vita has to offer. To help to overcome this, a lot of wizardry and custom FPS patches were used that render some games to be, you guessed it, somewhat playable, against all odds. There are also other games on my list like Ratchet & Clank. If you wanna see me talk about these or any other subject for that matter, give this video a like, subscribe, join if you feel extra generous. Also you can tell me about what game was the most surprising for you. I would like to thank you all for watching, thanks to members for their support. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.